He stole my parking spot every day, so I bought the entire lot. Every morning at 7:30 sharp, Marcus watches from his kitchen window as his neighbor Derek pulls into his designated parking spot. The same spot Marcus has been paying monthly fees for. The same spot Derek smugly claims. Doesn't have his name on it. Derek has no idea that Marcus isn't just another frustrated homeowner. He's a commercial real estate investor who's been quietly watching property values in this area for months. And today, Derek's arrogance just gave Marcus the perfect reason to make his move. Marcus Chen moved into Willowbrook Commons 18 months ago, specifically choosing unit to 14 because it came with designated parking spot number 12 right by the main entrance. Perfect for his early morning commute to his investment firm. As a commercial real estate developer, Marcus appreciated good location value. He pays the HOA an extra $50 monthly for this premium spot, and it's clearly marked with his unit number. The routine was perfect. Every morning at 7:15, Marcus would grab his coffee, walk downstairs, and drive straight to his downtown office. No hunting for parking, no stress, no delays. The extra monthly fee was worth every penny for the convenience and peace of mind. Marcus had specifically requested this unit when he moved to the city, knowing that proximity to both downtown and the airport would make his business travel schedule manageable. Willowbrook Commons seemed like an ideal community for a busy professional. The 200-unit complex featured modern amenities, well-maintained grounds, and a homeowners association that promised to handle all exterior maintenance and common area management. The premium parking spots near the main entrance cost extra, but Marcus gladly paid the additional $50 monthly to avoid the hassle of parking in the back lots near the maintenance facilities and dumpsters. But 3 weeks ago, everything changed when Derek Sullivan moved in next door. Derek drives a massive pickup truck, one of those lifted Ford F-50 monsters with oversized tires and chrome exhaust pipes that rumble like thunder at 6 in the morning. From day one, Derek decided Marcus's compact sedan doesn't need such a big space. The truck stands nearly 7 feet tall, painted electric blue with chrome accents that gleam blindingly in the morning sun. Derek himself matches his oversized vehicle perfectly. Standing 6'4" with broad shoulders and calloused hands, he carries himself with the swagger of someone accustomed to getting his way through physical presence alone. His voice booms across the parking lot whenever he talks, and he seems to enjoy making sure everyone knows he's arrived. The harassment started small. Derek would park crooked, his truck taking up both spot 12 and 13. When Marcus politely mentioned the issue, Derek shrugged it off with a dismissive laugh. "Parking's tight around here," he said with a smirk. "First come, first served, right? Besides, that little car of yours could fit anywhere." Marcus tried to explain the designated parking system, pulling out his lease documents to show Derek the specific clause about assigned spaces. Derek barely glanced at the paperwork before waving it away. "Look, man, I don't know about all that legal stuff. I just park where there's room for my truck." Within a week, Derek escalated to outright theft. Every single morning, Marcus would come downstairs to find Derek's truck parked squarely in spot 12. Not crooked anymore, deliberately centered, as if Derek owned the space. And Derek was always nowhere to be found, having left early for whatever job he claimed to have. Marcus tried adjusting his schedule. He started leaving at 7, then 6:45, then 6:30. But somehow Derek was always there first, that massive truck gleaming in Marcus's paid parking space like a middle finger pointed directly at him. The psychological impact was worse than the inconvenience. Every morning became a reminder that someone could just take what Marcus had legitimately purchased, and there was apparently nothing he could do about it. The worst part, Derek's attitude when confronted. He would lean against his truck with his arms crossed, a satisfied grin spreading across his face. "Hey man, no hard feelings," he would say with fake friendliness. "But I need the space more than you do." "My truck's a lot bigger than that little toy car of yours. You can park that thing anywhere." When Marcus pointed out that he was paying extra fees for the specific spot, Derek's response was always the same: "Take it up with management if you don't like it. I'm just parking where there's space available." What Derek didn't know was that Marcus wasn't just any frustrated homeowner. As a commercial real estate developer specializing in residential communities, Marcus had built a career on understanding property rights, land ownership, and the complex legal structures that govern places like Willowbrow Commons. His firm, Chen Development Group, had successfully acquired and redeveloped dozens of residential properties across 3 states. Marcus had dealt with problem tenants, negligent property managers, and corrupt HOA boards before. He knew exactly how these situations could escalate, and more importantly, he knew how to research the underlying ownership structures that most residents never understood. Derek's daily theft of his parking spot was about to become the biggest mistake of his life, but that's when things got worse. When Marcus files his first complaint with the HOA. Board President Linda Morrison barely looks up from her paperwork. She sits behind a metal desk in the cramped community center office, surrounded by stacks of violation notices and maintenance requests. Her reading glasses perch on the end of her nose as she glances at Marcus's carefully prepared documentation with obvious irritation. The office itself reflects the HOA's general incompetence. Fluorescent lights flicker overhead, casting harsh shadows across water-stained ceiling tiles. Filing cabinets overflow with disorganized papers, and the ancient computer monitor displays a desktop cluttered with random folders and outdated software. This is clearly not an operation that prioritizes efficiency or resident services. It's just a parking spot, Linda dismisses with a wave of her hand. Work it out between yourselves. We don't have time for petty neighbor squabbles. Marcus keeps his voice calm and professional, drawing on years of experience dealing with difficult property managers. "Mrs. Morrison, I'm paying $50 monthly for exclusive use of Spot 12. It's clearly marked with my unit number. This isn't a squabble. It's theft of services that violates community bylaws." Linda finally looks up from her paperwork, her expression showing mild annoyance at being bothered with actual HOA business. "Listen, Mr. double quotes, she checks his complaint form with exaggerated slowness. Chan. These parking disputes happen all the time. Talk to your neighbor. Be neighborly about it." That's what good neighbors do. Marcus slides a folder across her desk containing photographs, his lease agreement, and payment records. "I've documented everything according to the complaint process outlined in the community handbook. The resident in question is violating clearly established parking assignments." Linda doesn't open the folder. Instead, she pushes it back toward Marcus without even pretending to review the contents. "Look, I've got real problems to deal with. Broken air conditioning units, leaky roofs, budget meetings with the city. I don't have time to referee parking lot drama between grown adults." The dismissive attitude reveals everything Marcus needs to know about Linda Morrison's leadership style. She's clearly more interested in avoiding work than actually managing the community she's been elected to serve. This isn't incompetence, it's willful negligence, but Derek isn't interested in being neighborly about anything. When Marcus approaches him that afternoon, Derek is washing his truck in Spot 12, Marcus's spot, letting soapy water run down the storm drain in clear violation of the community's environmental regulations. The truck gleams under the afternoon sun as Derek sprays it down with a hose connected to the building's water supply. "Oh, hey there, neighbor," Derek calls out cheerfully when he sees Marcus approaching. "How's it going? Beautiful day, isn't it?" Marcus notices that Derek has positioned himself strategically, using his truck's size to block Marcus's sedan from accessing any nearby parking spaces. It's a calculated move designed to maximize inconvenience while maintaining plausible deniability. "Derek, we need to discuss the parking situation," Marcus begins, keeping his tone reasonable and non-confrontational. I pay extra for spot 12, and the community bylaws clearly state. Whoa, hold up there. Derek interrupts, shutting off his hose and turning to face Marcus with exaggerated surprise. The way I see it, these spots are first come, first served. You want to park closer, get up earlier, set an alarm, show some hustle, you know? Marcus pulls out his lease agreement, pointing to the specific clause about his assigned parking space. The document clearly states that spot 12 is exclusively reserved for unit to 14, with violation penalties clearly outlined. Derek glances at it for half a second, then laughs dismissively. "Sue me," he says with a shrug, returning to his truck washing. "I'm not stopping you from parking anywhere. There are plenty of spots in the back. It's not like you're disabled or anything." The back spots are a quarter-mile from the main building, next to the dumpsters and maintenance shed. They're not covered, they're not lit, and they flood every time it rains more than an inch. The asphalt back there is cracked and potholed, guaranteed to damage any vehicle parked there regularly. Marcus has been paying premium fees specifically to avoid parking in that automotive wasteland. Derek continues washing his truck while talking, making it clear he considers the conversation over. "Besides, my truck barely fits in these compact spaces. Your little sedan could park in half a spot. It just makes sense for me to use the bigger space, right?" Marcus realizes he's dealing with someone who has no intention of following community rules or showing basic respect for other residents' rights. Derek's attitude reveals a fundamental belief that might makes right, and his physical size gives him confidence that most neighbors won't challenge his behavior. So Marcus returns to the HOA office the next morning with even more documentation: his lease agreement, payment receipts, photographs of the clearly marked spot, copies of Derek's lease showing no assigned parking, and even a copy of the community bylaws highlighting parking regulations. He presents everything in a neat folder with tabs and page numbers organized like the professional presentations he creates for potential real estate investors. Linda's response: she doesn't even pretend to review the materials this time. "We don't get involved in neighbor disputes," she states flatly, sliding the folder back across her desk. "Find somewhere else to park. Problem solved." "This isn't a neighbor dispute," Marcus explains patiently, drawing on every ounce of professional composure he's developed over years of difficult negotiations. "This is a violation of community rules that residents are paying you to enforce. The HOA collects fees specifically to maintain order and ensure all residents can enjoy their purchased amenities." Linda closes his folder without opening it and stands up, clearly signaling the meeting is over. "Look, I've got a maintenance emergency in Building C and 3 budget meetings this week. I don't have time to hold everyone's hand through basic adult interactions. Handle it yourself or move somewhere else if you don't like how we do things here." The threat is subtle but clear. Residents who complain too much might find themselves unwelcome in the community. It's a classic intimidation tactic used by incompetent managers who prefer compliant residents to actual problem solving. Marcus realizes he's dealing with an HOA board that has completely abandoned its fiduciary responsibility to residents. But what Linda Morrison doesn't know is that her dismissive attitude just made this situation much more interesting from a legal and business perspective. Marcus has dealt with negligent property management companies before, and he knows exactly how to handle boards that refuse to do their jobs. More importantly, Linda's refusal to address legitimate complaints creates liability issues that could have serious financial consequences for the HOA and its insurance carriers. Marcus makes a mental note to research the community's insurance policies and board certification requirements. That's when the real trouble began. Derek's single quotes S behavior escalates rapidly once he realizes the HOA won't intervene. What started as simple parking theft transforms into a systematic campaign of deliberate harassment designed to make Marcus's life miserable and force him to accept Derek's dominance. Over the parking situation, the blocking starts first. Whenever Marcus manages to find alternative parking in one of the back spots, Derek repositions his massive truck to block Marcus's car in completely. Not partially blocked, completely trapped, with inches between Derek's chrome bumper and Marcus's sedan. Getting out requires a 20-point turn and perfect precision. Assuming Marcus can even squeeze into his driver's seat through the narrow gap Derek deliberately creates, the positioning is too precise to be accidental. Derek clearly studies Marcus's parking patterns and adjusts his own vehicle placement to maximize inconvenience. Sometimes Derek parks so close that Marcus has to climb through his passenger door to access the driver's seat. Other times, Derek blocks the rear exit, forcing Marcus to navigate around concrete barriers and landscaping features just to leave his own parking space. Whoops. Sorry about that, Derek says when confronted, not sounding sorry at all. His tone carries the false concern of someone who enjoys being caught in obvious lies. Parking's really tight back here. Maybe you should find a different spot. Or maybe invest in a smaller car that's easier to maneuver, but there are no different spots during peak hours. Derek has somehow figured out Marcus's entire daily schedule and adjusts his harassment accordingly. If Marcus parks near the mailboxes, Derek blocks him there. If Marcus tries the visitor spots near the community center, Derek files complaints with the HOA about unauthorized overnight parking. Complaints that Linda Morrison processes immediately. Unlike Marcus's legitimate grievances, the speed of HOA response to Derek's complaints reveals the double standard perfectly. When Derek reports Marcus for minor infractions, Linda sends official violation notices within 24 hours. When Marcus reports Derek for major rule violations, Linda claims she needs weeks to investigate before taking any action. The handwritten notes begin appearing on Marcus's windshield every few days, tucked under his wiper blades where morning dew makes the ink run slightly. Derek's messy handwriting delivers increasingly hostile messages. Stop whining about parking. Real men handle their own problems. Maybe try taking the bus like other people who can't afford cars. Each note escalates in tone and personal attacks. Derek seems to enjoy the psychological warfare aspect of the harassment, timing the notes to appear after particularly frustrating parking incidents. The messages reveal Derek's assumption that Marcus is somehow financially inferior. Despite Marcus driving a late-model luxury sedan while Derek's truck shows obvious signs of deferred maintenance, the psychological warfare intensifies when Derek starts making comments to other residents, spreading a carefully crafted narrative that paints Marcus as an unreasonable complainer who can't handle normal community life. Marcus overhears him talking to the elderly woman from Unit 208. Yeah, that guy's been complaining about me to the HOA nonstop. Can you believe it? Grown man crying about parking spots like a little kid. Derek's version of events always positions him as the reasonable neighbor dealing with an irrational complainant. He tells other residents that Marcus demanded his parking spot and threatened to sue when Derek politely declined. The lies are sophisticated enough to sound plausible to anyone who hasn't witnessed the actual interactions. When Marcus tries to correct these false narratives by speaking with neighbors directly, he discovers that Derek has already poisoned several relationships. The woman in Unit 206 now crosses to the other side of the parking lot when she sees Marcus coming. The elderly man who walks his dog every evening refuses to make eye contact. The campaign reaches a new level when Derek starts timing his truck washing activities to coincide with Marcus's arrivals and departures. Every time Marcus tries to access his vehicle, Derek happens to be cleaning his truck nearby, spraying water and soap in directions that force Marcus to navigate around puddles and cleaning supplies. Oh, hey there, Derek calls out during these encounters, always with the same false friendliness. Hope you don't mind the mess. Just trying to keep my truck looking good for the neighborhood property values. You know, the implication is clear. Derek's truck enhances the community while Marcus's complaints diminish it. Derek has positioned himself as the good neighbor maintaining community standards while painting Marcus as the problem resident who disrupts everyone's peace. When Marcus finally tries to speak with Derek directly one evening, hoping to find some reasonable compromise that might end the escalating conflict, Derek's response is immediate and aggressively physical. He steps out of his truck and walks straight into Marcus's personal space, using his size advantage to intimidate while maintaining plausible deniability about his intentions. "You got a problem with me," Derek demands, his voice loud enough for the whole complex to hear. His chest bumps against Marcus as he speaks, a classic intimidation tactic designed to provoke either submission or an aggressive response that Derek can use to justify escalation. Marcus doesn't back down, but he doesn't take the bait either. Years of difficult business negotiations have taught him to stay calm under pressure. "I just want to park in the spot I'm paying for," he says evenly, refusing to match Derek's aggressive tone. "Well, I want a lot of things too," Derek snaps, his voice rising to ensure maximum audience among watching neighbors. "Difference is, I don't go crying to Mommy Linda every time I don't get my way. Maybe you should toughen up a little and learn how things work in the real world." The public humiliation is clearly intentional. Derek wants other residents to witness Marcus being dressed down and intimidated, cementing the narrative that Marcus is weak and Derek is dominant. Several neighbors watch from their windows as Derek continues his verbal assault. The confrontation ends with Derek storming back to his unit, but not before making sure every neighbor within earshot heard him paint Marcus as a weak complainer who can't handle basic adult conflicts. "Some people just aren't cut out for community living," Derek announces to no one in particular, his voice carrying clearly across the parking lot. The next morning, Marcus finds a fresh scratch along the passenger side of his sedan, a deliberate key mark that definitely wasn't there the night before. The damage runs from the rear wheel well to the front door, clearly intentional and obviously expensive to repair. The scratch is too straight and too deep to be accidental. When Marcus approaches Derek about the vandalism, Derek examines the scratch with exaggerated concern and barely concealed satisfaction. "Oh wow, that's terrible," he says, running his finger along the damage. "You should be more careful where you park. Lots of crazy people around these days." Could have been anyone. Really? Maybe someone who doesn't like complainers. The threat is subtle but unmistakable. Derek is escalating from harassment to property damage, confident that the HOA's refusal to intervene gives him carte blanche to continue his intimidation campaign. Marcus files another complaint with the HOA, this time including high-resolution photos of the damage, timestamps showing exactly when it occurred, and witness statements from neighbors who saw Derek near Marcus's car during the relevant time period. The documentation is thorough and professionally presented. Linda Morrison's response arrives 3 days later in a form letter. "The HOA has reviewed your complaint regarding alleged property damage. No witnesses observed the actual incident occurring. We cannot take action based on speculation or circumstantial evidence. Residents should contact their insurance companies for coverage of vehicle damage that occurs on community property." The response reveals that Linda either didn't read Marcus's complaint or chose to ignore the witness statements he provided. Either way, it's clear that the HOA has no intention of addressing Derek's escalating behavior regardless of the evidence presented. Derek grows bolder after getting away with the vandalism. He starts bragging to other neighbors about how he trained the Asian guy to park in the back where he belongs. The racist undertones are unmistakable, but Derek is careful to make such comments only when he's confident no one will report them to authorities who might actually care. Marcus overhears these comments through his open windows and from neighbors who are disturbed enough by Derek's racism to share what they've witnessed. The harassment has evolved from simple parking disputes to targeted ethnic intimidation designed to make Marcus feel unwelcome in his own community. What Derek doesn't know is that Marcus has been documenting everything, every illegal parking incident, Every threatening note, every act of vandalism, every racist comment reported by sympathetic neighbors, every interaction with the negligent HOA board. The documentation goes far beyond what most residents would compile, reflecting Marcus's professional experience with legal disputes and property management conflicts. But more importantly, while building his case against Derek, Marcus has been conducting the kind of deep property research that his real estate development background makes routine. And he's discovered something very interesting about Willowbrow Commons in the county property records that most residents, and apparently most HOA board members, don't understand at first. It seemed like a small issue, but Marcus was about to learn that Derek Sullivan had just made the biggest mistake of his life while researching Derek's background for a potential restraining order. Marcus discovers something shocking in the public records that changes everything. As a commercial real estate developer, Marcus knows how to navigate county databases, property records, and municipal filings, skills that most residents never develop but prove invaluable in situations exactly like this. The first surprise comes when Marcus pulls Derek's employment records. Through his business connections in the construction industry, Derek has been telling everyone he's a successful contractor with his own construction company, boasting about major commercial projects and steady income that justifies his expensive truck and aggressive attitude toward other residents. But the truth tells a completely different story. Derek Sullivan hasn't held steady employment in over 8 months. His construction company is just a DBA filing with the state, doing business as Sullivan Construction Services. But there's no actual business activity behind the name. No employees, no contractors' licenses, no bonded projects, no insurance policies, and most importantly, no income. The DBA registration costs $50 and requires no proof of actual business operations. Derek essentially paid for the legal right to call himself a business owner without having any actual business to own. It's a common tactic among people who want to project success while avoiding the reality of unemployment or underemployment. Even more interesting, Derek is 3 months behind on his HOA fees. According to the records Marcus accesses through his real estate license, Derek owes the community over $800 in unpaid monthly assessments, late fees, and violation fines from previous neighbors who complained about his behavior. Under normal circumstances, this level of delinquency would trigger automatic eviction proceedings according to Willowbrow Commons governing documents. The HOA has the legal right to foreclose on units whose owners fall more than 60 days behind on assessments. But Linda Morrison has been mysteriously delaying any collection actions against Derek's account. Marcus digs deeper into Linda's background and discovers the connection. Derek Sullivan is Linda Morrison's nephew, her sister's son, whose employment problems and financial troubles have been family knowledge for years. Linda has been covering for Derek's delinquency while aggressively pursuing collections against other residents for much smaller amounts. The nepotism explains everything. Linda's refusal to address Derek's behavior, her immediate processing of his complaints while ignoring Marcus's, and her hostility toward any resident who challenges Derek's actions. She's not just a negligent board president. She's actively protecting her nephew while he harasses paying residents. But the real bombshell comes when Marcus digs deeper into Willowbrow Commons itself. Most residents assume their HOA owns the property outright, but Marcus discovers something that makes his pulse quicken with professional excitement. Willowbrow Commons is built on a ground lease. The HOA doesn't actually own the land beneath the community. The original landowner, Westfield Properties, still holds the master lease that covers all 200 units, the common areas, the parking lots, and every amenity in the complex. This ground lease generates monthly payments to Westfield Properties while giving the HOA operational control of the community day-to-day management. Ground leases are common in commercial real estate, especially in urban areas where land values are high. The structure allows developers to maintain long-term ownership of valuable land while collecting steady income from the improvements built on top. Most residential buyers never realize these arrangements exist because they're disclosed in closing documents that few people read carefully. Here's where it gets interesting. Marcus pulls the original ground lease documents from county records and discovers that the lease expires in exactly 6 months. When ground leases expire, the landowner typically has the right to reclaim the property, renegotiate terms, or sell the lease to new buyers. Even more intriguing, Westfield Properties has been quietly marketing the ground lease for sale for the past year. Marcus finds the listing in commercial real estate databases that only licensed professionals can access. The asking price is $1.2 million for the remaining lease term, which includes the right to collect monthly ground rent from the HOA and renewal options for additional 25-year periods. But here's the kicker. There have been no serious buyers. $1.2 million is actually below market value for a property generating steady income from 200 residential units. But most investors are scared off by the HOA management issues and deferred maintenance problems that have developed under Linda Morrison's leadership. Marcus realizes he's looking at an incredible investment opportunity disguised as a personal parking dispute. If he purchases the ground lease, he won't just become Derek's landlord, he'll become the ultimate authority over the entire community, with the legal right to approve or reject HOA decisions, set operational standards, and most importantly, enforce the parking regulations that Linda Morrison refuses to address. The financial analysis is compelling. The monthly ground rent payments from the HOA total nearly $18,000, generating over $200,000 annually. At the current asking price, that's an immediate return on investment of over 15%, not counting appreciation of the underlying land value, but Marcus sees potential for much more than passive income. Willowbrook Commons suffers from exactly the kind of management problems that his development company specializes in solving. Deferred maintenance, incompetent leadership, declining property values, and resident dissatisfaction, all fixable problems that increase property value when addressed professionally. He also discovers that Derek has been lying about much more than his employment status. Court records show Derek has two previous convictions for harassment and one restraining order filed by a former neighbor in another state. The pattern of behavior is clear and well documented, but Linda Morrison either didn't run background checks or chose to ignore red flags when Derek applied to live in Willowbrook Commons. The restraining order details are particularly revealing. Derek's previous victim was also an Asian American professional who complained about Derek's aggressive behavior and property damage. The similarities are too close to be coincidental. Derek appears to specifically target residents he perceives as vulnerable or unlikely to fight back physically. Marcus realizes he's dealing with a serial harasser who has found the perfect setup in Willowbrook Commons. A corrupt HOA president who protects him from consequences while he systematically intimidates residents who dare to assert their rights. But Derek Sullivan has no idea that his latest victim isn't just another frustrated homeowner. Marcus Chen is a commercial real estate developer with the resources and expertise to turn Derek's playground into his own personal nightmare. The research phase is complete. Now it's time for action. What they didn't know was that Marcus had the resources to change the entire game. Marcus contacts Westfield Properties directly the next morning, introducing himself as a commercial real estate developer interested in discussing the ground lease opportunity. The conversation with Westfield's asset manager, Patricia Williams, reveals just how eager they are to sell. "We've been marketing that property for 14 months, Patricia explains during their phone call. The HOA management situation has created complications that most investors find concerning. The current board president has been unresponsive to our communications about necessary improvements and upcoming renewal negotiations. Marcus schedules a face-to-face meeting for the following afternoon. Patricia Williams turns out to be a sharp-dressed woman in her 50s who clearly knows the commercial real estate market inside and out. They meet at Westfield's downtown office, a glass tower that overlooks the city's financial district. The Willowbrook Commons lease generates solid income, Patricia explains, spreading financial documents across her conference table. But we need a beer who understands residential property management. The current HOA leadership has let maintenance standards slip and resident satisfaction has plummeted. We're concerned about renewal prospects if the situation doesn't improve. Marcus reviews 18 months of financial records, maintenance reports, and resident complaints. The documentation confirms everything he suspected about Linda Morrison's incompetent leadership. Deferred maintenance costs are mounting, resident turnover is increasing, and property values are declining relative to comparable communities. What's your timeline for closing? Marcus asks, already knowing he wants to move forward. We can close in 2 weeks if you're pre-qualified, Patricia responds. We're motivated sellers at this point. $1.2 million, cash purchase, no contingencies. Marcus doesn't hesitate. I'll take it. Let's start the paperwork today. The due diligence process moves quickly because Marcus has already researched everything through public records. His attorney reviews the ground lease documents while his accountant verifies the financial projections. Everything checks out perfectly, even better than Marcus initially hoped. The most interesting discovery comes in the lease renewal clauses. When the current lease expires, Marcus will have the right to negotiate new terms with the HOA, including operational standards, management requirements, and even individual unit lease terms for residents who are behind on fees or violating community rules. More importantly, as the ground lease owner, Marcus gains immediate authority to approve or reject HOA board decisions that affect property management, maintenance standards, and community operations. Linda Morrison's days of unilateral decision-making are about to end permanently. 2 weeks later, Marcus becomes Derek Sullivan's landlord. The closing takes place on a Tuesday morning at Patricia Williams' office, with Marcus signing documents that transfer ownership of the master lease to Chen Development Group. The transaction is completely legal and properly recorded with the county, making Marcus the new ground lessor for all 200 units at Willowbrook Commons, his first act as the new ground lease owner. Marcus schedules an emergency meeting with Linda Morrison to discuss immediate implementation of new operational standards. The meeting takes place the following morning in the same cramped HOA office where Linda had dismissed his parking complaints just weeks earlier. Mrs. Morrison, Marcus begins, sliding a copy of the recorded deed transfer across her desk. I'm here to inform you that Westfield Properties has sold the master ground lease to my development company. Effective immediately, all HOA operational decisions require approval from the ground lessor, me. Linda stares at the document with growing confusion and alarm. What does this mean? Who are you to tell me how to run this community? I'm your new landlord, Marcus explains calmly. And my first requirement is immediate implementation of proper parking enforcement according to existing community bylaws. Residents who are paying for assigned spaces must have exclusive use of those spaces. The color drains from Linda's face as she realizes the implications. You can't just come in here and change everything. We have established procedures. Marcus pulls out another folder containing Derek's delinquent account records. Speaking of procedures, I'll also need immediate collection action on all delinquent accounts, starting with Derek Sullivan, who owes $847 in past due assessments. Derek is my nephew, Linda blurts out, inadvertently confirming the nepotism that Marcus had already discovered. He's going through a tough time financially. That's not my problem, Marcus responds. But his harassment of other residents and your failure to address legitimate complaints is definitely my problem. As of today, all parking violations will result in immediate towing at the owner's expense. Marcus hands Linda a professionally printed notice to post in the community center. New parking enforcement policy, effective immediately. Vehicles parked in spaces other than those assigned to their unit will be towed within 30 minutes. Towing fees and storage costs are the sole responsibility of the vehicle owner. That afternoon, Marcus contracts with Metro Towing Services to provide 24-hour towing for Willowbrook Commons. The contract specifies that vehicles in violation of posted parking assignments will be removed immediately upon notification, with no exceptions for weather, time of day, or owner circumstances. Derek's massive truck, currently parked in Marcus's assigned spot 12, gets towed at 6 a.m. the following morning. Marcus watches from his kitchen window as the tow truck operator hooks up Derek's precious F-250 and drives away with it, leaving Derek to discover the loss when he comes downstairs for his usual morning routine. The sound of Derek pounding on Marcus's door at 6:15 a.m. is deeply satisfying. Marcus takes his time answering, sipping his coffee while Derek's shouting echoes through the hallway. "You son of a bitch!" Derek screams when Marcus finally opens the door. "Where's my truck? What did you do with my truck?" Marcus remains perfectly calm, speaking in the same professional tone he uses for difficult business negotiations. "Your vehicle was towed for parking in a space assigned to another resident. You can retrieve it from Metro Towing on Industrial Boulevard. The fee is $250 plus $25 per day storage. You can't do this." Derek shouts, his face turning red with rage and disbelief. "That's my parking spot. I've been using it for weeks." "Actually," Marcus replies, producing a copy of the community bylaws and pointing to the relevant section, "that space is assigned to Unit 14, which is my unit. As of yesterday, I'm also the ground lease owner for this entire property, which means I have the authority to enforce parking regulations that the previous management ignored." Derek's face goes through several color changes as the reality of the situation sinks in. The whining Asian guy he's been bullying and intimidating now controls his housing situation completely. "You can't do this," Derek repeats, but his voice has lost its aggressive edge. "I can do whatever the lease allows," Marcus explains patiently. "And you currently owe the community $847 in past due assessments. Payment is due immediately or you'll face eviction proceedings." The mention of money causes Derek to deflate visibly. He clearly doesn't have $800, let alone enough to also pay towing and storage fees for his truck. "This is harassment," Derek says weakly. "I'll call the police." "Please do," Marcus encourages. "They'll be interested to know about your history of harassment, vandalism, and the racist comments multiple neighbors have reported. I have extensive documentation." Derek storms away without another word, but Marcus can see the defeat in his posture. The bully has finally encountered someone who won't be intimidated and has the resources to fight back effectively. Within an hour, Derek is on the phone with every towing company in the city trying to negotiate payment plans or reduced fees. Metro Towing's policy is clear: cash only, no payment plans. $25 per day storage until the bill is paid in full. But then things got much worse for Derek. Within a week, everything unravels for Derek and Linda in ways that exceed even Marcus's expectations. The ground lease ownership gives Marcus access to HOA financial records that reveal corruption far beyond simple nepotism and incompetent management. Marcus exercises his right as ground lease owner to conduct a comprehensive audit of the HOA's finances, hiring a forensic accounting firm that specializes in residential community management. What they discover during the 3-day audit is shocking even by the standards of corrupt HOA boards. Linda Morrison has been systematically embezzling community funds for over 2 years. The methods are sophisticated but obvious once proper accounting procedures are applied. She's been creating fake maintenance contracts with non-existent vendors, then writing checks to accounts she controls under various business names, the artificial landscaping company that supposedly maintains the common areas. It's actually Linda's personal account under the name Greenscape Services, the roofing contractor who allegedly repaired Building C. Another Linda Morrison account called Summit Roofing Solutions, the security system company that monitors the community center. Morrison Safety Systems, also Linda, over 24 months. Linda has stolen nearly $43,000 in community funds while residents wondered why their fees kept increasing while maintenance quality declined. The money went toward Linda's personal expenses, including payments on a luxury SUV and a vacation condo in Florida that she purchased with stolen HOA funds. Even more damning, Linda has been using Derek's unpaid fees to cover her own assessment obligations. When Derek fell behind on payments, Linda should have pursued collections or initiated foreclosure proceedings. Instead, she used community funds to cover Derek's shortfall while marking his account as current to avoid awkward questions from other board members. The forensic accountants also discover that Linda has been manipulating vendor contracts to benefit Derek's fake construction company. Several legitimate maintenance projects were awarded to Sullivan Construction Services at inflated prices, with Linda approving payment for work that Derek never actually performed. The community paid Derek over $6,000 for projects that exist only on paper. When Marcus presents this evidence to the State Housing Authority and local prosecutors, both Derek and Linda face serious criminal charges. Embezzlement of community funds is a felony, and the evidence is overwhelming and well documented. Linda's attempts to destroy financial records only make the charges more serious. The criminal investigation moves quickly because Marcus's documentation makes the prosecutor's job straightforward. Linda Morrison is arrested at her home on a Thursday morning, charged with embezzlement, fraud, and conspiracy. Local news coverage includes footage of Linda being led away in handcuffs while neighbors watch from their windows. Derek faces charges related to the fraudulent construction contracts and conspiracy to defraud the HOA. His previous convictions for harassment make him a repeat offender, which increases the potential penalties significantly. Derek's arrest takes place in the Willowbrook Commons parking lot. Adding to his public humiliation, the community holds an emergency meeting where residents vote unanimously to remove Linda from the board and pursue civil lawsuits to recover the stolen funds. Marcus addressed the meeting as the new ground lease owner, outlining his plans to restore professional management and improve community standards. Under the previous management, this community suffered from declining property values, deferred maintenance, and resident dissatisfaction. Marcus explains to the packed community center, "My company specializes in turning around distressed residential properties. We'll be implementing professional management practices that will benefit everyone who lives here." The response is overwhelmingly positive. Residents are grateful that someone finally addressed the corruption and incompetence that had plagued their community. Several people thank Marcus personally for taking action when the HOA board refused to help Derek. Unable to pay his mounting fees and facing certain eviction, attempts to negotiate with Marcus for more time to resolve his financial situation. The conversation takes place in Marcus's unit, where Derek's previous arrogance has been completely replaced by desperate pleading. "Look, I know we got off on the wrong foot," Derek begins, his voice shaking with anxiety. "But I'm family here. Linda's my aunt. We can work something out, right?" Marcus reviews Derek's account balance: $847 in past due assessments, $250 in towing fees, $125 in storage fees, and $500 in late penalties. The total exceeds $1,700. Your family relationship with Mrs. Morrison is actually part of the problem, Marcus explains. Her preferential treatment of your account constitutes fraud against the other residents. My attorney recommends pursuing additional civil charges for the money she stole to cover your obligations. Derek's face goes pale as he realizes the full scope of his legal exposure. "I didn't know she was stealing money. I thought she was just being nice about my payments. Your construction contracts with the HOA suggest otherwise." Marcus continues, producing copies of the fraudulent work orders. "You were paid over $6,000 for work you never performed. That's fraud." Derek breaks down completely, admitting that Linda had convinced him to set up the fake construction company to help her steal community funds. She said everyone was doing it. She said it was just creative accounting. "I needed the money because I couldn't find work." The confession is recorded with Derek's permission, providing prosecutors with additional evidence for their case. Derek agrees to cooperate with the investigation in exchange for reduced charges, but he still faces substantial civil liability for the money he helped Linda steal. Unable to pay his mounting obligations, Derek has to sell his beloved truck to try to catch up on payments. The F-250 that he used as a symbol of dominance over other residents gets sold to a used car dealer for far less than Derek owes on the loan. He's still short several $100s even after the sale. The community holds another meeting where residents vote to elect new HOA board members recommended by Marcus's management company. The new leadership consists of residents with actual business experience who understand fiduciary responsibility and professional property management. Derek quietly moves out in the middle of the night, too humiliated to face his former neighbors after the criminal charges become public knowledge. His unit gets foreclosed and sold to recover the community's losses, with Marcus's company handling the transaction professionally and transparently. The parking spot that started everything, Spot 12, sits empty for weeks while the community processes everything that happened. Eventually, Marcus converts the space into a small community garden area where residents can plant flowers and vegetables, symbolizing growth and renewal after corruption. Local media coverage of the case attracts attention from other residential communities dealing with similar HOA problems. Marcus's company receives dozens of inquiries from communities seeking professional management services and corruption investigations. The lesson becomes clear to everyone involved. Never underestimate someone based on appearances, and always be careful who you choose to antagonize. You never know what resources they might have or how far they're willing to go to protect their rights and their community, but the transformation was just beginning. 6 months later, Willowbrow Commons is thriving under new HOA leadership that Marcus helped select and professional management practices that his company implemented. The transformation is visible in every aspect of community life, from improved maintenance standards to increased resident satisfaction to rising property values. The new HOA board consists of residents with actual business experience who understand their fiduciary duties and legal responsibilities. The board president is Sarah Martinez, a certified public accountant who volunteered to help clean up the financial mess left by Linda Morrison's embezzlement. The vice president is James Wong, a retired project manager who oversees maintenance, contracts, and vendor relationships with professional oversight. Property values have increased 23% since the corruption was exposed and professional management was implemented. Real estate agents now actively market Willowbrow Commons as a well-managed community with strong leadership and excellent maintenance standards. The community's reputation has improved dramatically, attracting quality residents who appreciate professional property management. Marcus still parks in Spot 12 every morning, but now he's also the most respected resident in the community. His office regularly receives thank you cards from neighbors who appreciate his willingness to take action when the HOA board abandoned its responsibilities to residents. The professional management company that Marcus hired has implemented systems that prevent future corruption and ensure transparent financial operations. All contracts require competitive bidding. All expenses require board approval with proper documentation. and monthly financial reports are distributed to all residents for review. The community center has been renovated with funds recovered from Linda Morrison's embezzlement conviction. New computers, updated furniture, and professional office equipment make the space functional and welcoming. The contrast with Linda's previous cramped, disorganized office is striking and symbolic of the broader changes. When new neighbors move in, they hear the legendary story of how the quiet guy in Unit 14 took down a corrupt board president and her bully nephew while saving their community from financial ruin. The story has become part of Willowbrow Commons folklore, shared with pride by residents who witnessed the transformation Marcus's development company has gained recognition in the commercial real estate industry for its successful turnaround of distressed residential communities. The Willowbrow Commons case study is featured in property management journals and presented at industry conferences as an example of effective intervention in corrupt HOA situations. The legal proceedings concluded with significant consequences for both Linda Morrison and Derek Sullivan. Linda received 2 years in prison for embezzlement and was ordered to pay full restitution to the HOA, plus penalties and legal fees. Her assets, including the luxury SUV and Florida condo purchased with stolen funds, were seized and sold to compensate the community. Derek received probation and community service for his role in the fraudulent construction contracts, but he also faces substantial civil liability for the money he helped steal. His cooperation with prosecutors helped secure Linda's conviction, but he remains responsible for repaying his portion of the embezzled funds. The criminal convictions sent a clear message to other HOA board members throughout the region. Resident funds are not personal piggy banks, and nepotism will not protect you from prosecution when you violate your fiduciary duties. Several other communities have requested audits after hearing about the Willowbrow Commons case. Marcus has expanded his business model to include HOA consulting, services for communities dealing with management problems. His company now offers forensic accounting, board training, and professional management services, specifically designed for residential communities that need intervention and reform. The parking enforcement system that Marcus implemented has become a model for other communities. Clear signage, consistent enforcement, and professional towing services ensure that all residents can enjoy the amenities they pay for without harassment or intimidation from problem neighbors. The community garden that replaced Derek's favorite intimidation spot has become a symbol of renewal and cooperation. Residents work together to maintain flowers and vegetables in the space where Derek once parked his truck to harass Marcus. Children play safely in areas that were previously sources of conflict and tension. Marcus continues to live in Unit 14, but his role in the community has evolved far beyond resident to respected leader and advisor. Other residents regularly seek his guidance on property management issues and community improvement projects. The lesson learned resonates throughout Willowbrow Commons and beyond. Never underestimate someone based on appearances, and always be careful who you choose to antagonize. You never know what resources, skills, or determination they might possess when pushed too far. More importantly, the case demonstrates that corruption and incompetence in residential communities can be addressed through legal action and professional intervention. Residents don't have to accept poor management or harassment from problem neighbors when they're willing to take appropriate action through proper channels. The transformation of Willowbrow Commons from a community plagued by corruption and harassment to a thriving residential property proves that positive change is possible when residents demand accountability from their leadership and support professional management practices. Marcus's story has inspired residents in other communities to research their own HOA management and property ownership structures. Several have discovered similar ground lease arrangements or management problems that they're now addressing through legal action and professional consultation. The parking spot that started everything, Spot 12, remains Marcus's assigned space, but it's no longer a source of conflict. Instead, it represents the principle that all residents deserve to enjoy the amenities and services they pay for, regardless of their background or the size of their vehicle. Have you ever dealt with a parking spot bully or corrupt HOA leadership? Share your story in the comments below. Your situation might be perfect for our next revenge story about residents who refused to accept harassment and took action to protect their rights and their communities. And subscribe for more tales of HOA justice served cold, where bullies learn that intimidation has consequences and corruption always comes with a price. Sometimes the quiet neighbor you're harassing has exactly the right skills and resources to turn your own tactics against you in ways you never imagined possible.